everyone. Welcome to the Phoenix Rising Academy League Analyst Desk. This is our first time doing this for this winter split, but we are now here. I am Smax. I'm joined by Nutty9, It's Lemons, Go Next Seawolf, and Baymax as well. We are all here to talk about tonight's games. There were 4 amazing games to watch. How are you guys doing?
Good.
I'm doing great.
Doing what?
Yeah, pretty good.
Oh.
Hanging in there.
It's been a great night. I of course I casted all those games, so I'm a bit snoozy, but you know it is what it is. It was a great set of games, of course. And yeah, we're gonna go through them all. Well, there were 4 of them. We're gonna go through them all one by one. And of course, first up on our list is Akuma Scythes versus were they against?
RMU Junior Varsity team.
Yes, RMU JV. And what a game that was. It was 24 minutes, very, very quick stuff. And it seems like with Mouse Dixie more on form today, that Akuma Scythes are back in order, at least a little bit more than they were last week.
Yeah, I mean, you know what? RMU JV, I kind of expect a little more from them. I don't think they necessarily played that badly. There were some issues, of course, but for me, a big problem with that game was just the draft that they had. You know, you're playing against an Olaf in the jungle, you know, a champion that obviously he doesn't care about crowd control. He's got the Ragnarok for that. He's just going to run you down, and you're playing against him with a bunch of shorter range champions, and none of them with high DPS early. And you guys kind of touched on that in the cast, but right. Ryze, Sejuani, Hybridinger, Braum, who the heck is going to kill this Olaf before 30 minutes?
Yeah, it's pretty devastating to have this Olaf just absolutely run over things. But the craziest thing to me is that Mouse Dixie didn't even have to gank. He just took all of the objectives, and it was just super, super sick stuff from him. He just cleaned up every single thing on the map at the same time, almost. And yeah.
Of Olaf.
Yes.
Yeah, there was nothing they could do about it. It was just nuts.
I have a very different opinion on why they got curb stomped.
Let's hear it.
So basically, obviously, like the comp could have played a big role in it and everything, but I don't think that specifically because of the Ryze and the Sejuani that they just got shit on. I think that in the second Drake that they tried to take, right, they just started it. They had one control ward behind the pit. You can see it on the screen now. They had one control ward behind the pit, and one control ward at the bottom of the river. They had no idea where literally anyone was. Devo wasn't even in the fight. Like, there's literally no setup for this fight. And they give up 4 kills and a Drake. 5 kills after they kill Cottablow's flash. They get 4 kills and a Drake. And so that's like the beginning of the end, right? Now you gave an Olaf a huge early lead, Kled's huge early lead, and Cassio just scales for free. And your comp doesn't have any way to deal with that because you picked Ryze into Cassio.
Right, yeah.
Is an inherent.
Can we get props to Doctor, though? Some of those hooks were just nutty.
Oh, yeah.
Like, one of the ones just went through there is just, oh, my God.
That's what I wanted to kind of point out is I'm a little bit of an Akuma fanboy from last split. You know, I like to see them do well, and to see them kind of come together in this game was really nice to see, especially after the start that they've had, and to really see them like come together, like you said, seeing the hooks coming through from Doctor, seeing those plays like we saw last split is really, really nice to see, at least in this series.
Yeah. And we during that last game we got confirmation that Akuma did also beat CSU. So that puts them in 3rd place, tied up with Wolfpack now at 4-2. Are we thinking that Akuma is going to break into that 1st place spot eventually and take down some of the teams that are up in the top?
I don't know about that. Let's not get hasty here.
Let's not go too far. Come on.
Let's not get ahead of ourselves.
All right.
Confidence does a lot in League of Legends, good and bad is all I'm going to say.
Yeah.
I mean, I watched that game as well, the CSU game. I'm just going to say that Akuma didn't win because they played it well. They won because CSU is really, really bad.
Wow, we just got naughty, the negative Nancy over here. RMU played bad. So, oh my God.
Well, I mean, I did think that this last game was like one of the better games I've ever seen in the PRL.
It was really nice, yeah.
Some of these like 2-2 teams in this division specifically kind of just are Let's just stop talking.
Well, Akuma sides were a 2-2 team before today.
That's what I was gonna say, but
Yeah.
I said some of these teams.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So,
Well, I wanna-
speaking of Akuma here, we want to switch it over to RMU for a little bit here because, of course, they also were in that same pack. They were tied up with Akuma sides until this game.
Yeah.
How are we thinking about our like general perception of this team now after this after this little bit of a devastating loss against
the draft. The draft has to change and at least make sure that you're picking something that's going to work. Obviously, it doesn't seem like any of those picks really kind of worked out for them. So maybe just go back to the drawing board and see if you can work on something in scrims or in practices that can be pulled out with more confidence.
Right.
And I also kind of feel like they weren't really on the same page as a team for that game. And I think that draft can work, like Naughty was saying before. They didn't exactly play around what they had well either. It's not just the draft was bad, it's also that they didn't play to their win conditions very well. And I think part of that is, you have an Irelia that was doing very well top lane. You have a Sejuani, which is excellent setup for that Irelia, right? They synergize very well together. Irelia helps to stack that stun very quickly, and just the Irelia is a massive amount of setup for the Sejuani stun, or the Irelia stun, excuse me, and that's a really strong 2v2. And yet it felt like a lot of the time when RMU was falling short earlier on, it's when you had Deadly playing around the weaker side of the map and trying to do damage control around the dragon, around the bot lane and the mid lane, versus just trying to abuse the lead they already had on the top side of the map.
Yeah. In all fairness, he had to do damage control because they picked Heimerdinger Braum bot lane. To be fair to that, but yes, I do agree that the Irelia Sejuani combo should have been enough to just fully run over this top lane, and they did that for a little while. But like you mentioned here, just didn't prove to be a sustainable strategy, and Am Deadly just had to go bot lane after a bit.
I mean,
he chose to.
Another thing that I'd like to look at, like, not only did they not play to their win conditions and everything, but they continuously just disrespected the thresh hooks, like, over and over again. And then on top of that, like, if you just look at each player later into the game, like, Akuma was continuously making outplays the entire game. Like, every single player on RMU was just outclassed, like, the entire game. So it's not really fair to judge them in regard, because one thing that Akuma is like really good at is they're just good players all around. Every single one of their players is solid, and you can't really judge RMU in this game, I think, just because it looked like they were scattered. They might need more time to keep working as a team. Like, their vision setup was terrible, and if they continue to like work things out, I think they could maybe break into the top like 4, but outside of that, I don't think they're anything special.
There you go. Some brutal words there from Nutty 9.
Nothing special. Naughty 2020.
True.
But yeah. So with that, any closing thoughts here on this first game of the night?
Akuma win, fight, go 1.
Yeah. So we've got did Seagull say anything? Sorry.
I just wanted to really emphasize how well Akuma was able to force RMU to kind of play into their strength. They first picked out Lucian and then forced the response of the Braum, which just played into what Doctor wants to play. So they're able to get the Thresh counter pick, which sets them up bottom lane really well. And then just play around that bottom lane, get those dragons, get the objectives, and really push that lead.
Yeah.
Well said.
As simple as that. Right. So now with that, let's move on over to the second game of the night. We've got a pretty nice game, another very short one. Where excuse me, this is the wrong image. Yeah, we switched it. My mistake. We did not have.
It was Shenzi's versus.
Yeah,
Aether.
it was Shenzi's versus Aether. That's very true. I don't know. I got mixed up like we did with the schedule earlier. But yeah, Shenzi's Frenzies, Aether. Another very, very quick game. And Caliburn on this Misfortune doing a lot of damage, most in the game. But honestly, It was mostly just his team setting him up in this one. It was a lot different from the other Aether game where he was popping off and the one making a lot of these plays. It just felt like all the pieces around him really fell together so nicely, and then he even had a completely whiffed bullet time, but it still didn't really matter at all.
Well,
Yeah,
I just want to highlight the Akali pick quickly here because and this is something I was talking with Naughty about earlier. He mentioned that a lot of the top mid laners right now have very high mobility, and Akali is almost like the creme de la creme of the mid laners right now. In competitive play, she is very very good, and I play in a collegiate team, and in the collegiate League of Legends in CLOL right now, Akali has I think a 100% presence and
Yeah.
49 bans in one play. It's like she's nuts. No one lets her through, and so I think letting her through is just like it's one of the worst mistakes you can make right now.
Yeah, she has 100% pick ban in pro play across all of the regions that are playing right now too. So
Yeah.
it's not just CLAW; it's every region is picking this and trying to go with this champion against or trying to pick Lucian into it as well. Did not go through at all.
That's the point I would like to make here.
Yeah.
So I wrote in my notes for this game, please stop picking Lucian mid. Pro players can't pull it off in NA. Like, you're not good enough to play Lucian mid. Please stop. It's so hard to pull off properly. Every team that tries it it does not go well. Like, the only time we've seen AD carries work mid is like Tristana, and last season I guess QE and Tron roll swap with the Ezreal. I mean, that's like the only time I can think of. But Lucian mid is not going to win you games.
Especially not against the Akali. Like you're mentioning, one of the best champions in the game in general.
Yeah.
But
I do think, however, that Yaji's Akali was relatively unimpactful here, though.
Yeah, I want to bring a lot of light to Magnum, and I did give him MVP on the series as well. He just set up pretty much everything for this team super well with the cataclysms onto the Senna, and then just the mid ganks as well. The level 2 ganks he ganked twice at level 2, and both of them were super well timed.
Magnum seemed like the catalyst for this game, and I would say that the Akali pick, like, when it could have been like the best possible pick here and run over the game, but I think I watched Yaji use his ulti away from a team fight 5 separate times. I don't think he ulted in one team fight, so I wouldn't even say that the Akali was the biggest problem. I legitimately just think it was another issue with vision setup. Like, if you look in, like, even in this clip right now, they have one pink ward in their own jungle, and they're getting perma invaded. They have no idea where anyone is. They can't walk around their own jungle freely because they're just getting outclassed as well. So it just seems like some of these teams have a better grasp on how to set up for fights, and other teams just aren't really on the same level.
Well, another thing I want to point out, and it can kind of go hand in hand with that a little bit, but I do want to point out Poppy as well in the top lane. The Fiora pick ended up doing very, very well into Mordekaiser, and so it can be easier to push into the jungle and kind of get the control and the vision you want to when your lanes just have priority, right? And even if Yaji wasn't doing that well in team fights, he always had priority mid. And Poppy almost always had priority top lane as well. There were a couple times where it got a little tense, a little back and forth. But for the most part, like, the solo lanes for this team were just playing really well. Or not even necessarily that, but just using their champions to get the pressure that they're meant to get.
I was more so talking about defensive vision, not so much like, I mean, they were behind from minute 1 because they picked Lucian mid, right? But I meant more so like, in their own jungle, they never knew what was going on. They were always kind of just running away from an engage in their own jungle or something.
Yeah, I mean, they didn't have the best time in lane, of course. But yeah, at that point, when your lane is down so much and your Lucian is down flash and first blood, you're kind of just gonna get run over like that. I will give a lot of credit to Dude Bay though. I think he played the Echo quite well. He was able to clean up a lot of the fights for his team and kind of kept him in the game. But At a certain point, that's just not going to cut it there, and you have to do something proactive. But when your team is super far behind, it's really hard to be proactive there.
Oh,
Yeah.
also, can we just talk about how awesome the cleanse was? Like, I feel like not enough people don't take cleanse into Leona. It's so good. Like, she
It is
can't
very
ult you
good.
now.
Yeah,
It's like
that's good.
the amount of times that what was his name? Hold on a second. I can't remember. Caliburn. The amount
Caliburn,
of times
yeah.
the Caliburn was just like playing so aggressive, and there was really nothing that Rosebud could do to punish him for it because he just had that cleanse available. Like, I saw the Solar Flare come out onto Braum so many times that it was for that exact reason. It was just like,
Yeah.
you have cleanse, I can't ult you. So
Yeah. It was a really, really nice game from the bot lane, and all of Aether really there. We do have to move on to our next match. Any closing thoughts we've got here? All right.
doesn't sound like it.
Yeah, that's okay. We can just move on to the next one. This one was more of a spectacle here for Caliburn, of course. But yeah, they had a lot of interesting pieces here as well. They went a different way with Magnum. He went for the Trundle instead of the Jarvan. And we had Tristana mid for Yaji. And of course, it was into a different opponent in Famous Gaming.
Do you guys remember that 1v1 where Yaji jumped on Burks? That's all. That's instantly what I think of when I think of the Trist mid this game.
Yeah.
Just jumping on Burks and then Burks just murdering him. It's like, oh, okay, never mind.
Gotta be
Never
careful
mind.
what you want to jump into.
Yeah.
Oh, this fight here, this level 2
fight-
What?
I typed in chat, this is probably one of the worst things I've ever seen in PRL. Like, my
Oh
mind
my
was just
God.
completely blown at what anybody was thinking. I just,
There's about 7 different things that had at least one eyebrow raised. Yeah.
yeah.
There's a lot. There's a lot going on there. There's lots to
Yeah.
unpack.
I tried to
Yeah.
forget about that as soon as possible, but there it is on my screen yet again. Especially Curry flashing into the Baron pit and getting the hook. He gets the hook, but he doesn't have Lantern, so he's by himself.
He doesn't have anything.
The level
Like,
2.
Yeah.
I'm going in, guys. Oh wait, I'm by myself. And now
And then
I die.
coincidentally after that, he's like, "No, I was lagging though."
yeah.
I'm
A
kidding.
likely
He
story.
probably
a likely
was.
story.
He probably was lagging, but you
Yeah,
know.
but lag doesn't make you flash over the wall. Okay,
That's
it doesn't make you flash.
Yeah, it was a funny game to watch for sure. A lot of interesting plays, but they do come out ahead in the end. And honestly, it's really just thanks to this Aphelios pick, and I am shocked
Yep.
continuously every single time that Aphelios makes it through the ban list. But we'll get to that when we talk to Game 4.
Oh, I wanna talk about some other things that happened this game too.
Yeah,
because
yeah.
you had I felt like FG Prodigy really didn't play around their strengths very well at all. You had Graves, Cassiopeia, Senna, and then the Shen, which I didn't understand as much, but still.
Right.
Okay, Cassiopeia was ahead early. Basically, the whole early game, Cass had pressure. Cass is a strong early game champion anyway. Just does a lot of damage at all points in the game. And I think it was the very first dragon that spawned was the Cloud Dragon. And you had Insecuro in the top lane on Ornn with teleport, with ultimate available, and Dragon was up in the bot lane, right? And Cassiopeia had pressure. Senna was really, really strong. These are all champions sort of hitting their power spikes. And Graves also very strong early on. And instead of teleporting, and by the way, teleport advantage, Mordekaiser did not have teleport. It was a teleport advantage for the Ornn. Instead of making a play with that and using the Call of the Forge God and kind of collapsing and using your strengths in this early game to make something happen, you had the Call of the Wave Clear God happen top lane, and then they sort of just gave up the dragon, and I really, really don't think they should have.
Yeah.
I agree.
Go ahead.
They gave a lot. Like,
Right.
But the one reason that I think that's somewhat fair is just because of the hard player difference in the bot lane. Like,
Oh, the other thing though is the Senna was 3-0 at this point. At this point, the Senna
exactly.
was 3-0.
yeah, that's my point. They got player diff out of this because Aphelios is strong. Don't get me wrong. But he is not like that broken to where he should just be one-shotting you. Well, I guess you picked Shen, but like it just felt like they didn't they played the lane so poorly. They gave them so many advantages over just to the Aphelios for free, like in 2v2s.
Yeah.
It was just such an awkward like game to watch, I guess.
Yeah, we do have a limited amount of time. We want to get to the next one. Do Lemons and Seawolf have anything to say about this one? Because we're going to get to the next and final closest game.
I mean, you just have to be careful in draft, especially like you were saying, leaving the Aphelios. He's just so strong right now. And yes, Senna is up there as well, especially if you look around the competitive scene. Yeah. But Aphelios is just so strong. You get him in front of those team fights in those big moments where you group up and you're all fighting for your lives, and those AoEs come down and your health bars are gone. So you just have to be careful of those kind of situations.
Oh, the other thing is Nautilus was up. Pick that instead of Shen, and then you have depth charge for Aphelios, and like
then you have an actual team
more counterplay. Yeah,
yeah.
So,
then you're not just AFK.
That's something I wanted to kind of jump on. This was a second ban Leona as well. Like Leona hard counters Aphelios, which was the first pick in the draft.
Yep.
And they left Leona and Nautilus on the table to take this Shen. That just it doesn't have the pressure needed.
It doesn't do anything.
Yeah, it just doesn't bring anything to this game, and it just really feels bad.
Yeah, I was saying it in the draft as well that there were about 1,000 picks that could have been better. Or a more realistic number, there were about 5 picks that could have been better than very low, and they were all
that doesn't sound so impressive. God.
Yeah,
I disagree. There's like 1,000. You could have picked Vygar support here, and it would have been better. Like,
oh man, but yeah,
actually yes.
Actually, it would have been a lot better.
Yes.
Actually, it would have been a lot better. Actually.
All right, we're getting too far down the rabbit hole. Let's go on to game number 4, which we just watched. Lost Collective Gladiators taking on Wolfpack. That was a barn burner of a game, and ended with a crazy pentakill from Echidna. This game was so insane here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We all agree it was the closest game by far of the night. It was very fun to watch.
Anarch at that Baron. Oh no. I saw that. I was staring right at it when that happened, buddy. I feel for you. I do. But also like, and the Narm one, the one that's just playing out like a few seconds ago here, like that was pretty glorious too. And I want to actually mention, AFK in the top lane. He did really, really well after getting behind early and dying. He kind of clawed it back from that deficit, and he had a lot of pretty nice plays. So kudos to him, I think.
His nice was good.
Yeah, his did seem good. It was hard for me to get past the solo kill that he gave up at like level 5 for a long time in that game. I just kept reminding myself of that, but it was really really good. Other than that, yeah, a little bit. But yeah, it was a really nice performance from him. Of course, he did clean it up with a solo kill of his own later on, as we did see in that first clip of this game here. But yeah, it was a really, really well fought game from both teams, I think. And we were mentioning it before about what we thought of the kind of a tier list hierarchy of these teams. We mentioned how these are probably our top 2, and we just saw them play this last game of the night, which is awesome.
I think this was probably like the best game that we've seen in the PRL so far this split, at least in my opinion. Both of these teams played to their win conditions relatively well. Mechanical errors weren't happening as often. Like, for example, in the AE game, there was a lot of mechanical errors. Like, it just seemed like these teams were a little bit higher caliber than any of the other teams we saw play today.
Yeah, and that's where I wanted to kind of highlight a little bit as well, is because when you have a little bit cleaner execution on your mechanics, it lets you open up for strategies and your macro play and learning how to play the map. And that's what this game became, was about the objectives, and the Baron ruled over and ended up bringing them to victory. But it just shows that it's all about how you play around these objectives and making sure that you can get to a point where you can contest over them.
Yeah, it was a lot of really, really cool little plays here, but it kind of gets a little bit thrown out the window when you consider that the draft did not feature Aphelios, Senna, or Misfortune.
Right. That's one thing I wanted to bring up, because like we look at this game and it's a well-played game, right? But my thing is, when games go poorly and like people are constantly making misplays and like they just look like bad players, right? The draft isn't as relevant. But when you have teams that look this good and then you randomly just pick Vayne, like
Yeah.
that's a big question mark for me,
Yeah.
at least.
Triple F looked really good on the Vayne, but just imagine how good he was on a good
A champion that actually plays the game, yeah.
Yeah, and I don't think Triple F's the only one that you can really call out, because Ezreal did end up taking that Kaisa with
Right.
at least 480 carries out there that you could say
Yeah.
are far better.
Yeah.
And that even makes the Vayne pick look better, because Vayne is a well-known counter to the Kaisa pick just because of the ability to 1v1 her.
Yeah. I don't hate the Kaisa here. I think if it's like a comfortable pick and you think that you can play it well in a certain comp, like it can work over something. I can't say over the top 3, but like it can work. I do just hate the Vayne pick though. Like
I think it makes more sense than the Kaisa pick. For some
Really?
perspective here, Triple F did the second most damage in the game, and Echidna did the most, but Ezreal was down at 7th for damage.
Well, yeah, and the casters were kind of talking about this too, but you had the Vayne into a team that really didn't have the range to properly deal with it, right?
The only answer is Cassio.
Yeah, Cassio is a decent answer. The miasma is really, really good, but if the miasma fails, then like Vayne just chews through Gnar and Zac so fast, and it's just, and the Morgana Black Shield doesn't do all that much, and so I can see where the Vayne pick comes from. I do want to quickly say in my notes here, I don't remember exactly what brought this on, but I wrote, "What is it with Ornns and wasting R?" At some point,
it's all the time. It's like becoming a normal part of the game now for some reason.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be PRL without some questionable Ornn ults here. But I do wanna close out our conversation with bringing it back to our kind of hierarchy here. So we now have 2 teams tied for first. We got Aether and Lost Collective, and then we have 2 teams tied for third with Wolfpack and Akuma Scythes, and then we've got the other 4 teams underneath that. I believe it is RMU, then Famous, then Shenzi's Frenzies, and then Cleveland State without a win quite yet. I, coming into this week, thought that there were 6 teams of this division that had a pretty all right chance getting into the playoffs.
No.
I think that it's down to 4, maybe 5 if RMU can claw their way back a little bit, but I think it's down to 4.
It would require a lot of turnaround from RMU. It's not impossible though. There are like 3-3 right now, so they're still in a position that can make playoffs as long as they can clean up their gameplay.
Like record wise, they are. Player wise, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm thinking that of course it is closed down. We've got 4 weeks, so there's definitely still a lot of leeway there if they shape up a little bit more. But just based on the trajectory of these teams, that's mostly where I'm at here. And as far as the playoff teams go, because there can only be 3, I want to get some I guess hot takes from you guys. We'll go down the line here in the Discord call, or we can go up because it looks like Baymax is muted. But we've got the teams here. Which team doesn't make it into that top 3 and goes to playoffs? Starting with you, Nutty.
Hey, I think they're by far the worst out of the top 4.
All right, Lemons.
Honestly, after this last game, it kind of showed me a little bit more into the Wolfpack, so I'm gonna show Wolfpack as not making it out.
Ooh, all right. What about you, Seawolf?
I would have to agree. I think Wolfpack looks kind of like the weakest of these 4 currently. I've just seen too many times where they've let that they have the hold on the game and then they let it slip. And if you keep doing that, you're not going to win games.
Exactly.
All right, Baymax.
I'm kind of leaning towards the Wolfpack too for a couple of reasons, and I don't want to hate on them too much because I do think they, I don't like to be mean. I don't like to be that guy, but I'm not a big fan of the whole, let's not pick the meta stuff. Like That
Right.
doesn't bode well for me. It's like, are you going to be able to get a gentleman's agreement with every team to not play the meta stuff or not play against the meta stuff? Like, you're going to have to come to terms with that at some point. And in playoffs, I'm pretty sure that there's going to be people that are like, people aren't going to pull any punches on that, right? Like, you're going to have to deal with that at some point. And also, I did feel like they were a little bit less organized as a team in this fight. It felt like they were a little less on the same page than some of the other teams we saw play. Aether was looking pretty good today, and Lost
Yeah.
Collective looked pretty good as well. So
Yeah, I am still a little bit uncertain, but I wanted to hear you guys there. I will give a little bit of a yeah. Wolfpack is the team with the least consistent roster. They've brought a different roster to all 3 weeks, so I'm hoping that they can solidify that a little bit more, so we can get a more clear idea as to how they're going to perform here. But it does seem like they've got an uphill battle, even though they are tied for third with Akuma. It's going to be very, very entertaining to see who does come out ahead and who does fall to the wayside, or even if RMU comes back into it. That'd be pretty sweet. But with that, we're gonna be able to close it out here. Thank you guys so much for listening in on the analyst desk. Do you guys have any last thoughts here before we take it to the closing of the stream?
yes, I want to give a shout out to whoever it was in chat that said in that last game that they thought that Oriana should have built Deathcap instead of I think her third item was Zanya's, and I 100% agree. I think one, with the Orin upgrade, the Deathcap is really, really nice to have, and
Yeah.
two, there were so many shockwaves that were really, really good, but were just like a little damage short of finding the kills they needed to find. And so that might have made the difference, honestly. I think when you're behind or in a close game, generally building damage is like what you got to do.
Anyone else? Last thoughts here?
I do want to shout out Ezreal in that last fight. We were actually talking about it. Solo carrying it, inting into the backline so that Wolfpack would get overconfident and run straight into the Cassiopeia.
Absolutely, glorious. 200 IQ.
Yeah,
Amazing play.
Mighty actually called that out before. He said that as long as there's a Cassio, I don't mind to be. So that's exactly what Ezreal did. That's pretty funny that came true. But what about you guys?
It's definitely interesting. I just want to say that I really like to see the developments so far with these teams, but I'm more excited to see the next couple weeks and see how they kind of move forward. And I want to see the separation in this and who really pulls forward to be that.
Right. All right, Nutty. Anything else?
Yeah, I just want to call out Tron for saying that Diana's the better Akali right now. That was one of the dumbest things I've ever heard in my life. And
oh my god.
Go Akuma.
One of the dumbest things you ever heard? I don't know, man. I think Akali's overrated, honestly.
What?
Wow.
100% pick ban rate in all of competitive. But yeah, she's probably just overrated.
Nah, people are sleeping on Shen, dude. People are sleeping.
We're gonna let you guys hash this out over off the stream here. But everyone, thank you so much for listening in. I saw we had a lot of people still remain here for the analyst desk, so thank you guys so much. We're gonna be doing this for the rest of the week as well. Thank you to my lovely co-hosts here for joining me. As always, we're looking forward to having you guys back for upcoming episodes. But with that, we're going to close out the stream. Thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to leave us a follow or a Twitch Prime sub if you have. Those are all free. They help support us quite a bit. Be sure to check us out on Patreon at Phoenix Rising League, or our YouTube at Phoenix Rising League as well. And we also have our Twitter at Phoenix Rising NA that you can go ahead and follow. All very, very nice ways to show us your support if you would like to. But with that, that's going to close it out for us tonight. Thank you so much for watching Week 3 of the Fire Division. Tune in tomorrow at 6:30 EST for the liftoff show of the Cinders Division. We're going to be getting into Week 3 as well. We do have broadcasts at 7 p.m. Eastern Time all week round, so be sure to tune in at any time on those days at that time, because we're probably streaming at that time, so you're going to want to check it out. We got some amateur League of Legends all around the week. So be sure to tune into that. But thank you guys so much for watching yet again. And we'll see you guys next time tomorrow.